Yoni LeGrande, how are you doing today?
Aloha, I'm doing awesome, David.
Well, it's great to see you. We did see each other fairly recently. You paid a visit to New York City, and it was great to see you and Kelly Wall.
Yeah,
And but I don't think I'd seen you for.
probably since graduation. Yeah.
Yeah. We should disclose to our viewers that you and I know each other because we went to Punahou School together.
Yep.
We graduated in 1988. I've wondered over the years about you and many other of my classmates, like where were they from? What were their families like? Because we didn't really ask these questions when we were teenagers. We kind of
Right.
focused on other things. But I would like to delve into the LeGrande family story and also the story of your mother's side. But why don't we start with the LeGrandes? First of all, I have to say, Yoni's a great name. I have not met a person named Yoni since I met you in the 80s
Really?
in Hawaii. Are there other Yonis out there?
I'm actually surprised in New York that you haven't. It's actually it's a total hippie name. So because we were raised in the 70s, I was stuck with hippie parents, and mine full is
You were
it's
blessed with hippie parents.
blessed with hippie parents. I mean, it was Hawaii in the 70s after all, 60s and 70s. And Yoni Star is my full name. My sister's Maya Lani. So, my parents got married, in Pupukea Mountaintop.
Well, I definitely want to get to the hippie part of your story because there's nothing more interesting than hippies in Hawaii in the 70s. I mean,
Definitely. Yeah,
what's kookier than that? But
exactly.
let's go really far back
Okay.
into the mists of time with the starting with the LeGrande family. So who are they? And then how do they get to Hawaii?
Okay. Yeah. So the Legrands, my grandparents, my grandfather, Legrand, was born in Illinois. My grandmother was born actually in Hermosa Beach, California. And they met when my grandfather was becoming a Navy cadet. And he looked very handsome in his white, Navy uniform. So she married him on the spot. And they ended up crisscrossing across the country for almost their entire military career in a station wagon. They had three boys. My father was the middle child, and they never spent more than 2 years in one place. And so they crisscrossed across the country doing that. 1963, they came over on a boat and were stationed at Pearl Harbor. And my grandmother was like, "We're not leaving." So this is it. So that's where they ended up landing. And they lived in Foster Village, which is it's a little neighborhood right across from Radford High School, which is where my father actually graduated from. Um, and further down the line, actually, all of my parents graduated from Radford, which is kind of interesting. He was a career Navy man, and then he was a used car salesman. My grandfather, after he retired. My grandmother was amazing. She was actually, after staying at home her whole life, she was a real estate broker as well. My father, as I mentioned, graduated from Radford High School, was a total hippie surfer kid. He used to work in the pineapple fields at night, picking pineapples, and then so that they could surf all day. So yeah,
Wait, hold on. Was that an option picking pineapples at night?
it was. You actually almost always pick pineapples at night. Actually, to this day, if you drive down Dole, past Dole, down to Haleiwa, at night, they pick pineapples at night almost exclusively. And they would scale the fence of the Foster Village Community Center pool and dive in after working all night and just leave it disgusting, full of pineapple juice and red dirt, and then go home, sleep for a few hours, and then go surf.
Well, let's stay back in the midst of time a bit longer. LeGrande sounds French. Is that sort of where people were from?
Yes. So we don't go everything we've had a hard time getting back to the old country, so to speak. Everyone seems to kind of wind up California, Illinois, Iowa. Definitely some Scottish roots in there and LeGrand, but yeah, we haven't actually been able to trace it back very far to anywhere specific in Europe.
Your mother also graduated from Radford?
Yes. So my mother was also a military brat. Her and she actually her they lived like a block away from my dad in Foster Village. She graduated from Radford as well. Her name was Deborah Nudd was their last name. And she and my dad got pregnant like right after high school. And so I was born obviously 1970, and my sister was born 2 years after that. We actually lived out on the North Shore, out in Wailua for many years. Um, and then they broke up because they were very young at the time. And my sister and I actually went to live with my dad's parents in foster village, Renita and Bill LeGrande. And so I was raised by my grandparents for about 7 years, which was a fantastic childhood. After three boys, they loved having two little girls, and we just had the best childhood ever. And then 1979, my dad actually found another Radford graduate who everyone probably knows, Linda LeGrande, who is also Auntie Linda in the attendance office and then the athletic office at Punahou. So she was also a Radford graduate. She had a son from a first marriage, Lee. They got married in 1979, and we all moved to Manoa, which is where my mom is still today. So yeah, most people probably don't know that Linda and Lee were my step family, but obviously raised uh, together from a very young age. So they're obviously family.
If you describe both of your, your original parents as, hippies, what was there something in the personality of both that you think drew them to each other?
Yeah, they were both young, cute surfers. They loved just sort of that natural lifestyle. I remember my mom making soy milk from scratch in our kitchen in Wailua. They just liked that lifestyle. Maybe it has to do with sort of a natural reaction to having strict military parents, and a natural reaction against that rebellion. But yeah, they were super happy in the beginning, and I think they were just really young, which is why it didn't work out. But we all have a relationship with each other now, and we're all worked out.
Well, when you talk about the time you spent, essentially being raised by your grandparents, what do you think about? What are those happy memories? Where do you see yourself? What do they take you to do?
They were really into because they had more time than probably most parents did since they didn't really work. So we spent a lot of time like going around the island, and we would do drives around the island. We had a really nice little community of people in Foster Village. There were always a lot of kids my age. So I had some really good childhood friends. Also with my dad, that was being a hippie. It was dawn patrol in the morning, out to North Shore to go surf. And that sort of thing. Lots of hiking, obviously, all over Oahu. Trips to the outer islands. My dad had a little cabin up in Kula on Maui, and we've spent a lot of time there as well.
What were your parents doing while you were, living with your grandparents?
My dad is a carpenter. He's a finished carpenter, so he does a lot of restoration work and fine carpentry work on older homes in Manoa in particular. He's also worked on Iolani Palace and Shangri-La, doing restoration work for those older homes that require sort of a special techniques and that sort of thing. Um, Deb, my biological mom, moved off island and was a masseuse in California. So I didn't see a lot of her when I was growing up.
Well, if I ran into or someone ran into your dad in 1975, what would he look like? What was he doing? Where was he going?
He had a beard then, pretty big beard, and I have a great picture of him holding me. I think it looks like we're out on the west side, and he was shirtless, which he always was, like I think my entire childhood, and holding me, and has like this crazy Manson-esque beard, an old truck and a surfboard. So yeah, that was definitely my childhood. And my mom was very, pretty long brown hair, little dresses, very very 60s 70s.
Were you guys all religious?
We were not a very religious family. Just being outside was sort of our church, basically. Like just being out in the water, being out in the mountains, like that was definitely sort of our gig. We also we're a close family, and we also are sort of insular. We're all, I think, probably lean toward the introvert side. So we like the company of each other, and so we didn't have like tons of friends and stuff. So most of our time was spent together within our family.
So you moved to Manoa when you were, I guess, nine-ish, 10-ish.
Hmm.
Talk about the Manoa years. What do you remember? I mean, it's a beautiful, lush valley, very near Punahou.
Right.
What do you remember about those years?
Yeah, we went to Noelani School, which is an elementary school kind of in the back of Manoa. So we used to walk from home to there. I remember the Japanese school there, which was really cool. And Noelani is actually, I probably heard this in other interviews where I met Gabrielle Hammonds, Emalani Crow, and Errol Carroll, who are still friends to this day. So that was probably the best takeaway, and they all lived in Manoa, so they were the sort of cohort that we spent time with. ASO soccer, of course, like every rite of passage, I think, for every kid growing up in Hawaii.
As you were getting older and you were mixing it up with many other families, did you change your view on what your family was like? Did you feel like, oh, that it was unusual that you had spent so much time with your grandparents, and did that make you feel any particular way?
Um, no, I think just because my I had such a great upbringing like that, I have no bad memories of that part of my life, and never felt like, oh, wished that my mom had been around or something a little more. Like I just didn't really feel that, and I was very loved, and my sister and I are very close, and then the little family that we were creating with Linda and Lee was really important to me too. So, and my grandparents were still close by. They were relatively young as well, and so I think I just felt I had a very nice kind of insular life.
So both of your parents had grown up in Hawaii.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
all three.
All three of your parents, your two
Yeah.
biological, and then
Hmm.
um, was there ever any talk, whether you were a kid or as you kind of got towards graduation, about being a haole, like a haole family? How did you understand that in the context of Hawaii?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt, that being white in Hawaii, being a haole was just sort of like a state of being. It was sort of just as you were, and you had to be. I think it made you a little more respectful, of the other cultures around you. Um, and of course, being in Hawaii, you have friends from all over every culture. You had Filipino friends, and we had Japanese friends, and other haole friends, and that sort of thing. My dad did talk about when growing up, uh, going to high school in Hawaii and Kill Howley Day and stuff. And he and the other Howley kids would just run for the buses after class to try to avoid getting a beat down and stuff like that. And obviously, by the time I grew up, that really wasn't a thing, as far as I knew. But I also know that one of the reasons my parents wanted us to go to Punahou is to avoid any of that in public schools as public high schools.
Did you get a lot of sunburns as a kid?
I was absolutely fried as a child and am paying the price now with my dermatologist every year. Every year something gets nipped off or burned off. And yeah, definitely. It's and sunscreen was not a thing in our day. So
Yeah.
yeah, every once in a while I think we would put like zinc on our noses, but that was about it. Yeah, I got excruciating sunburns.
Yeah, I just got burned again and again and again, and that's
Oh
that's
yeah,
just how.
yeah.
And my mom would put aloe vera, like
Aloe,
we just go in the backyard, she'd
the
slice off the
plant,
aloe
yeah.
vera, yeah,
Yeah,
and
forget
like
the aloe vera gel. It was just the plant that you peeled open and slathered. And yeah, we
yeah.
used to be a game to see who could peel the biggest piece of skin off my dad's back, because we just burned so much.
How old were you when you entered Punahou?
I started in seventh grade, so Bishop Hall. And obviously thought it was incredible, incredible place. Um, we had always walked through the campus and gone to Punahou carnivals and stuff like that. But going there was a real treat for sure. Some of my favorite teachers I loved. Fred Van Dyke was my English teacher. For those who maybe don't know, he's a pretty famous big wave surfer, and he was our English teacher. So
Um, do you recall anything notable from those years? What?
I am very, very shy and pretty reserved person. So usually it's just kind of head down, get through it all. Not the greatest like academic student in the world. I loved English, I loved history, not so great on math. Um, and I probably took every language there was to take. Pretty much taken like Latin, Japanese, French, Spanish. Just trying to get 2 years of it under my belt.
So
Um,
once you got to the academy, how do you think you fit in? I mean, you had, of course, this core of friends, and that was very important to you, and it remains very
mhm.
important to you. But what do you think your persona was on campus? What did people, you know, think of you, and how do you think they perceived you?
That's a great question. I don't, I'm not really sure. I didn't really, I mean, it's a big class, like, truth be told, it's a pretty big class. So I think it's pretty easy to just kind of maintain some degree of anonymity. There were definitely like, popular crowds of, people who, and like the athletes, obviously got a lot more attention, which was fine with me. I thought that everyone was really nice. I thought that it was a really great group of people that was actually really engaged and friendly and smart. And I was just very impressed with, I don't think the maturity level that everyone had at Punahou. They all seemed to kind of, and it's a little bit of fake it till you make it, but everyone seemed like they were, had a sense of where they were going and who they were. Um, and that was inspiring to me.
Were there any kind of like high points as far as like intellectual moments or classes where you felt like you really gained an insight?
Yeah, I became an English literature major in college, so the English classes were incredible. The creative writing, but English literature, history, American and like European history, surprisingly, was one of my favorites. Choir, loved musical theater, did a little bit of that. I think I was always in the background, but it was still a lot of fun. Since I wasn't an athlete, that was sort of the thing that we did, was express our creativity that way. So really enjoyed that as well. And then also worked tuition scholarship. We were on a tuition scholarship, all of our siblings. So worked all over the place. I think I worked in the library, in the bookstore.
Punahou has all kinds of families, including some wealthy families. Did you ever kind of feel a the disparity? Like you felt, gee, there's some kids here who have a lot more money than my family does.
Definitely. I think that was there. But our family was pretty solidly middle class, I would say. So I don't think that I ever really thought that, it was a bad thing necessarily. I actually never even went off island until I think I was 16. So that was the first time I had ever been off the island. And we went to California to visit relatives.
Do you recall going to social events, parties, things like that? Outside of school, like what would you do?
No, I think I would go to school dances, but I didn't really go to parties that much. We did hang out with a group called the Rats, and Greg Thielen's parties were probably the ones that I would go to. Um, um, Again, pretty reserved, so didn't do a lot of like drinking and that sort of thing, but it was just a fun kind of hang out with a group of people that I enjoyed and was close with. So no, I didn't do a lot of partying in high school.
Just a couple more questions and I'll let you go, Yoni. This is great. So when you were on your way to graduate in 1988, what was your frame of mind? What were you thinking about as far as the future? How did you feel about what your future looked like?
Mhm. Actually, I didn't apply to many colleges. Right after high school, I went to Japan, where I had been going for a couple summers to work, and then I got kind of disillusioned with that, and so I was like, okay, I got to go to school. Like, what am I doing here? Doing nothing. So I actually ended up going to Oregon State in the fall, just sort of sight unseen, and Nick Holden, Nico Borelli, Sam Bowman, I think John Yonimitsu were all there as well. So that was a great, easy landing pad. Like it was just fun to have some Punahou friends to also be with. I had no idea that they were going until I got there. But that was really fun. And then Oregon proved to be too cold and gray for most Hawaiians, and so like a lot of other people, I ended up going back and finishing at UH, University of Hawaii. But at the time of graduating, I think everyone was sort of ready to be off the rock a little bit, and my parents encouraged us to go away. Neither of my parents had gone to college, and so I think they were interested and encouraged us to do that.
What were you doing in Japan?
I modeled for a couple years. Nothing crazy, but just magazine work, shows, that sort of thing. The
Why?
funnest thing I did there was like I was like a race car girl, and I would hold the umbrella over race car drivers in pit stops. So
Why?
that's a whole other video.
Why Japan? How did you get recruited to go to
Um,
Japan?
Japan was just easy because you know, growing up in Hawaii, the culture was very, very familiar to me, and very culturally, it was really easy. It was a very safe place to be. Even back then, it was really easy to get around the city with the subways, and um, you would go with an agency, and they would kind of set you up with an apartment and stuff. So it was just a great place to be, and I mean, culturally, it's incredible and beautiful. So I just had a lot of fun being there, and didn't really want to go anywhere else. It was just a comfortable, fun place to go, make some money. It was a
So
great summer job.
so yeah, yeah. I think some people scoop ice cream
Exactly.
or chop.
My poor sister was waiting tables, you know, and I was like, I'm
So
just gonna go.
some people chop the
So
heads off of fish in Alaska for their summer trip.
exactly,
But I mean,
exactly. It didn't suck.
was there a were there like agencies that recruited, white women to be models in Japan? Like what role did you play? Was it because you looked, exotic or different, or what do you think?
I think so. I think back then, and I think things have changed a little bit for the better, honestly, you know, where people are embracing their own cultural, you know, identity and versions of beauty. And I think back then, you know, in the 80s, 90s, um, you know, being a blonde Halle girl in Japan was exotic. And you could go all day without seeing other foreigners, even in Tokyo, and definitely outside of the city. So yeah, I think that was sort of the idea, was that you stood out a little bit in a magazine or on a runway show with Japanese designers.
So you were a teenager, I guess 16, going around the city by yourself? You're going around Tokyo by yourself?
Yes, believe it. I think the first time I went, I was yeah 15 or 16, and I don't know what my parents were thinking. I probably wouldn't have sent my let my daughter go when she was 15 or 16, but it was through a local Hawaii agency called Kathy Muller, which a lot of people are probably familiar with. And she had been doing business with a couple agencies there for many years, and they were very reliable and trustworthy. And you know, our people who kind of managed us were very um, conscious of, you know, taking care of us. But we also had a lot of time on our own. You know, after working hours, we could do what we wanted, did what we wanted on the weekends, traveled, went to Tokyo Disneyland, went to you know, hiking in the mountains and that sort of thing. But I never had a bad experience there. It was fantastic, and actually, probably thinking about it, did give me a level of confidence that I didn't have when I was younger, for sure.
What is the funniest or most heartwarming or most notable thing, that anecdote that you can tell us from your time as a solo teenage blonde girl going around Japan?
Probably the time I got lost in Japan, and I was completely lost, turned around, you know, in a big city, and I think it was raining, and it was like dawn, and I was kind of crying to myself and trying to figure out how, you know, this is before cell phones, before maps, you know, on phones and everything. And this woman came, and she asked where I was going, and she walked me probably 2 miles out of her way to walk me all the way to a station that I recognized. And then she gave me her and she didn't speak any English. She just, like, you know, heard where I needed to go, walked me, gave me her umbrella, and then turned around and probably walked, you know, the 2 miles back to where she was, and then kept going to wherever she meant to go. I mean, and that happened probably more than once. You know, people would give us umbrellas if it was raining, and just, you know, were very kind. I have nothing bad to say about my time in Japan. When modeling can sometimes be a little bit exploitive, and I never felt that working there. It was great.
And you had taken Japanese at Punahou, right? Were you able to talk to
I
people?
did. Yeah, no, that actually was really fun. I was never very fluent, but I could definitely, you know, get around on the subway, and have small, you know, like kind of, you know, little conversations with people at work. So it was great.
Whenever you tell someone on the mainland that you're from Hawaii, they always say, "What was that like?" So when people ask you that question, what do you say?
I would say that it was, just a glorious way to grow up. I mean, it was free and very relaxed, I felt like. Um, you were never cold. I guess I had cousins, who lived in where we would get cold. Um, I think in typing class, I don't know if you guys did this in typing class, in Mr. Kusanoki's typing class, we had like a pen pal one year, and we had people writing us were like, "Do you live in grass shacks?" and stuff like that, and we're like, "No." Um, but to that end, it was pretty idyllic in terms of the weather and just I think the cultural diversity was pretty impressive as a child, like just being able to absorb that. And I still to this day will get off a plane if I've been away from Oahu, and just the smell sort of Hawaii and the light hits you, and it always makes me feel like that you're home.